Okay, we've explored discipleship in relation to the cultural values we have. Now I'm going to bring in some contextualization thinking. When I teach the contextualization course, I talk about 7 dimensions of religions. That comes from Ninian Smart's thinking. He was a comparative religions scholar, and he talked about one of the dimensions being the social dimension. The social dimension has to do with identity. It has to do with ideas of exchange. It has to do with how we learn. It has to do with politics. And so we'll look at each of those and ask questions in relation to those in terms of discipleship. So these are areas you haven't explored yet in the course. They're not as much framed in terms of cultural values, but asking questions that are found in this dimension of societies all around the world. So first, this question of association. And association focuses on how you connect. You can think of something as simple as an alumni association. When you finish your time at Wheaton, you will be part of the alumni association, and forever you will be receiving mails and emails and requests, and yet the journal or the online magazine opportunities to see how Wheaton is doing and what's going on here. It focuses on how we connect with each other, but every time we connect to a group of people, there are people who are excluded. So this concept of connection has both the idea of inclusion and exclusion, which is it's an ongoing part of human societies. How and why connected people separate themselves from other people and other connections. And so in discipleship, if you're organizing a small group of believers, then you will be disconnecting them from other people in some way, shape, or form. They won't be part of your discipleship group. We look at issues such as the purposes of the connection, symbols or markers of that connection. Among some of the African independent church movement groups, every once in a while you'd see a parade of them passing by in the street. And I noticed that they were wearing different clothing, different colored clothing. They had the same uniforms, but some were purple, some were green, most of them were white. And I asked an African, what's going on? This was a student who researched cults with me, and he said, well, the reality is the color indicates what angel has appeared to them in a vision and has told them that the angel will protect them. So these were signs and markers of these people, and they connected them to each other, but they disconnected them from other Africans as well too. And what were the functions of those kind of connections? All the rules, regulations, the means of joining in, the discipline and everything else are all part of how societies govern themselves, or how discipleship groups are governed. And we'll see that a little bit later when we get to that section. So we look at Acts 6 as a part of association, and we see people not being fed. The Greek-speaking widows were not being fed. What is the connection between them and the Hebrew-speaking widows? Well, they're all widows, but they don't speak the same language. And one of the elements of looking at who is chosen to meet their needs, these are all Greek names. And so the likelihood these are Greek-speaking deacons who were brought in to help the Greek-speaking widows. Purposes, it makes for ease of communication. They have a parallel identity. The symbols and markers for them are the names that we see in the New Testament. And the function of the language use is the ability to communicate. They're also connected by status. Their inclusion by unique circumstances in life. They're widows. They're deprived. Some might be young, some might be old. Age is not what discriminates them. Gender does discriminate them because these are all females. But they're widows. They're separated by need, and they're separated out from the rest of the group and not receiving what they need. And so a new group is identified who will make sure they get what they need. The symbols and markers, and I ask questions because you don't see an indication of this. Do they wear a different colored dress because they're widows? Do they live in a certain section of town? Is there a section where the widows live together? Or perhaps do they all live together somewhere, just as a means of helping them meet ends? And then the functions of this exclusion and inclusion is to provide protection and security from Greek-speaking deacons. And they're connected now, those that are chosen are connected by ministry. They don't have the same responsibilities or status, but but they do have this set of responsibilities in relationship to this particular group of widows. The purposes of separating them out are for ministry and leadership, and they have a public identification. They're named in public by the disciples, and that's a symbol, and that has them serve in that capacity. So then from then on in, they have authority. So again, all it is association, and ask yourself, what does it mean in a cross-cultural setting for someone to associate themselves with you, or for you to associate yourself with them? I'm going to look over the time we have together at this concept specifically in relation to U.S. and Korean values. I've mentioned in other lectures this idea that if you ask Americans what they will value, you'll have freedom, you'll have rights and justice, you'll have independence, and you'll have privacy. By way of contrast, Koreans will value the role and their place, knowing what role they're to play, the face and the honor that they have, especially giving honor to leaders, authority and obedience, and walking in harmony. And so when I look at these sets of values in relationship to association, what verses might resonate with a North American audience? Well, John 8:36, so if the Son sets you free, you will be free indeed, would be a verse an American might like to cite, whereas a Korean might focus on 1 Corinthians 7:17. Nevertheless, each one should retain the place in life that the Lord assigned to him and to which God has called him. This is the rule I lay down in all the churches. I'm not going to walk through each of these passages. I'm just giving you one sample. When you think of how Koreans might reflect on associating together with each other for discipleship, 1 Corinthians 7:17 would have more weight for them than perhaps John 8:36 would. And it doesn't mean they ignore John 8:36. It just means they resonate less with the idea of the need for personal freedom than I do the idea of personal role or place, because there's a security in having a place. And if you've grown up with the idea that you have a status or a role and you know what that is, to suddenly lose that is a place of deep insecurity, and you're not sure what to do with that.